doe, a deer, a female deer, Ray, a drop of golden sun. Me, a name I call myself, far, long, long way to run.
Hi, and welcome to RT Essentials. It's NIKKI NOVAK here, and I can sing! Actually, I'm so sorry, nobody needed to hear that. What you do need to hear, though, is what we've got in store for you this week in our rundown of the best, most magically harmonic, toe-tappingly contagious, dramatically affecting movie musical adaptations ever. Now, a couple of notes here. Nothing in minor key, please. It's out of my range. I'm not a baritone, I'm a soprano. There are caveats for what qualified for this list. We're talking best musical adaptations, so only films that originated on the stage. So sorry, La La Land by Ryan. Farewell, Wizard of Oz, ease on down that yellow brick road. Second, we didn't include any entries that were exclusively the stage production put on film. So unfortunately, bye-bye, Hamilton. That means you and all the others like it. For the rest, we tried to keep our solos short and sweet, so we're sticking with the most essential movie musicals, ones where the films, though based on live production, stand by themselves as significant pieces of cinema. Apologies to all the Cats stands out there, but being the longest running show on Broadway just isn't gonna cut it for our criteria this week. Cats was basically a really long Snapchat filter. For everyone else, feel free to hum along if you know it. I can't because of copyright, so you do it for me. In this week's RT Essentials, Best Movie Musical Adaptations. The Wiz.
Mama would be so proud going to see The Wiz.
Sidney Lumet's 1978 The Wiz was an urban reimagining of Frank L. Baum's classic story in which Harlem was Kansas, New York was Oz, the Wicked Witch ran a sweatshop, the Good Witch ran numbers, and the man behind the curtain was a failed politician from, wait for it, Atlantic City. Oof, that hits a little bit too close to home.
Don't nobody bring me no bad news. I wake up all rather than negative, and I'm buying up my views. So don't nobody bring me no bad news.
The Wiz had maybe one of the most stacked casts in musical movie history, with Diana Ross as Dorothy, Lena Horne as the Good Witch, Mabel King as the Wicked Witch of the West, Richard Pryor as the Wiz, and a 19-year-old Michael Jackson as the Scarecrow. Joel Schumacher's screenplay was an extremely loose adaptation of William F. Brown's 1974 Broadway Liberato. Though Schumacher had seen the Broadway production, he used none of the Wiz's book, which is just fancy theater slang for spoken dialogue, which is also just fancy theater slang for all the talky parts between the song. Quincy Jones was hired to help with arranging the music and providing original songs for the film.
You wanted to meet the wizard.
The production incorporated many iconic New York locations into Oz, including the Cyclone at Coney Island, the 1964's World Fair New York State Pavilion, and the World Trade Center for the glittering Oz. Oscar de la Renta designed many of the costumes in the film. Though a critical and commercial flop, the movie gained second life through home video sales, where it became a cult classic and helped propel a then 19-year-old Michael Jackson to solo superstardom. In 2015, NBC completed The Circle of Life by readapting The Wiz into a stage production for The Wiz Live. It literally eased on down the road. The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
And Brad and Janet.
My name's Brad Majors.
Just a couple of clean-cut kids.
This is my fiancée, Janet Weiss.
Brad Majors and Janet Weiss are a newly engaged couple whose car breaks down at the palace of Dr. Frankenfurter in 1975's The Rocky Horror Picture Show. Richard O'Brien wrote, directed, and co-starred in Rocky Horror, which he originally conceived of as a theatrical love letter to the classic horror and sci-fi genre. It's also a total celebration of queer culture, as the uptight Brad and Janet soon find themselves swept up in the time warp, again, unaware that their self-proclaimed sweet transvestite host is actually an alien from the planet Transylvania.
I'm just a sweet transvestite.
The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I'm transsexual. Transylvania.
The story is strange.
For tonight is the night that my beautiful creature is destined to be born!
Rocky Horror marked the theatrical movie debut of Tim Curry, who originated the role of Frankenfurter on the London stage in 1973, alongside O'Brien, Patricia Quinn, Nell Campbell, and Jonathan Adams. His co-stars also reprised their roles in the film, but there was at least one notable addition to the cast. For Janet Majors, O'Brien cast a young Susan Sarandon in her first ever starring role.
This isn't the Junior Chamber of Commerce, Brad.
There's a mad scientist named Frank N. Furter.
Come up to the lab and see what's on the slab.
Originally played in theaters during the afternoon, Rocky Horror bombed hard. I mean hard, unsurprisingly due to its extremely risque subject matter, but found a rabid cult-like fan base through a peculiar avenue. Hybrid screenings where the movie would play in a theater simultaneously to performers who would stand in front of the screen and act out the entire show. These midnight screenings of Rocky Horror became a cultural milestone and a rite of passage that still continues to this day. Princess Diana was such a big fan, she requested a meeting with Tim Curry after one of his other plays, telling him that the Rocky Horror Picture Show had quite completed my education. West Side Story.
All right, now, come on. Shoot it, man, shoot it.
Okay, so bear with me a little bit as we trace back the origins of Jerome Robbins and Robert Wise' West Side Story, the 1961 adaptation of Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim's Broadway musical, which itself was a retelling of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. The musical swapped out Verona for New York's Upper East Side in the 1950s, foreshadowing two trends we'll be seeing a lot of in this episode: musicals based on plays based on other source material, and adaptations which relocate the central action to the same 10 square blocks in New York. Oh, and murder. These musicals love themselves a good homicide, preferably in song form. Murder! So sorry. It was an original. Don't steal it. Unlike our previous entries, West Side Story was a huge hit, like highest grossing film of 1961 kind of hit, like won 10 out of its 11 Oscar nominations kind of hit, including Best Picture. I mean, that's success. The film starred Natalie Wood and Rita Moreno, Russ Tamblyn, and Richard Beymer, belting out bangers like America, Tonight, and I Feel Pretty in between bangs of their guns. Because yeah, lots of gang violence in this one, folks. But you know, the kind that inspire impromptu ballet brawls between the Jets and the Sharks. With Steven Spielberg's 2021 remake, we are just hoping for even more snappy pirouettes to make all this systemic racism faced by the Puerto Rican Sharks a little bit easier to swallow. Les Misérables.
All alone, I walk with him till morning.
Who was that girl?
Cosette. Without him, I feel his arms around me.
In 2012, Tom Hooper dreamed a dream for Les Misérables, based on the longest-running musical of London's West End. This was pre-Cats, remember, and we still allowed Hooper to dream. For Les Mis, he imagined a soundtrack not pre-recorded in advance to be later mimed on camera, but captured live in the moment as the actors moved around sets built to look like the Paris uprising of 1832. This was the largest attempt to create a naturally ambient musical.
Without me, his world will go on turning, a world that's full of happiness that I have never known. I love him.
This was the first movie musical where actors led the pace of their own song, something fans either really liked or really hated, because it was that much harder to sing along to Anne Hathaway, Hugh Jackman, and Russell Crowe, making up their own individual rhythms as they went along. And what's the point of a musical if you can't sing it in time? But ultimately, it won critics over at least enough to have it be the first musical nominated for Best Picture since Chicago in 2002. While it didn't win, Hathaway alone scored the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress as Fantine. Les Mis is a sung-through musical, meaning there are no breaks where people are just, talking like normal people between songs. Nope. Every scene, every plot development, and every line of dialogue occurring during Les Mis, which takes place, to be clear, over 3 separate periods of time, is sung by the characters.
Without him, the world around me changes. The trees are bare and everywhere the streets are full of strangers.
While most of the cast was well known, actors Hugh Jackman, Amanda Seyfried, Anne Hathaway, Russell Crowe, Eddie Redmayne, Sacha Baron Cohen, and Helena Bonham Carter, the role of Eponine was played by Samantha Barks, making her on-screen debut. Barks was playing Eponine in the West End stage production of Les Mis when she got the call telling her she'd been cast in her very first movie. If the set looks familiar for the Battle of the Revolutionary Students against the French government, it may be because you've seen it pulling double duty. It also served as the set of Diagon Alley for the Harry Potter films. Fiddler on the Roof.
A Fiddler on the Roof.
If I were a rich man saying Israeli actor Topol in 1971's Fiddler on the Roof, Norman Jewison's adaptation of the Broadway musical about the family of Tevye, the milkman, and their town of Anatevka during the turn-of-the-century Russian pogroms. Now, if that doesn't sound like the type of story that lends itself to a lot of crowd pleasers, there's actually a surprising amount of bops between Matchmaker, If I Was a Rich Man, Sunrise, Sunset, To Life, and Tradition. There's a lot of toe tappers in the bittersweet tale of Shtetl, trying to keep out the dual threats of anti-Semitism and modern culture. Fiddler on the Roof was a huge hit in Japan where the themes of crumbling tradition resonated with audiences.
This is still my home, my land. Get off my land.
Fiddler received 8 Oscar nominations and won 3, including a statue for John Williams for Best Adaptation and Original Song Score. Yeah, they needed to workshop that title a little bit. To create a naturalistic tone for the film, Jewison eschewed the stage production's aesthetics and elected to film Fiddler on location, mostly outdoors and with an earth-toned palette. He hired famed director of photography Oswald Norris, known for creating unusual color palettes on films such as The Wiz, The Man with the Golden Gun, and Oliver, to create Fiddler's original color scheme. The Sound of Music.
How do you solve a problem like Maria? How do you catch a cloud and pin it down? How do you find a word that means Maria? A flibberty gentle will-o'-the-wisp, a clown.
Across the decades, one question has plagued musical fans. How do you solve a problem like Maria? We assume using a complex algebraic formula that mathematicians have yet to discover, but in the interim, we had The Sound of Music, Robert Wise's lighthearted romp through Nazi-infested Austria. Julie Andrews and Christopher Plummer co-star as the unlikely couple of Maria, a flibberty-gipped nun, and Captain Von Trapp, the uptight widower with 7 kids. Someone really needs to examine why all these movies are set against such traumatizing backdrops. This is why we can't have our favorite things, people.
Girls in white dresses with blue satin sashes, snowflakes that stay on my nose and eyelashes, silver white winters that melt into springs. These are a few of my favorite things.
To entertain the children between takes, Andrews would sing Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious from Mary Poppins. Since the film hadn't been released when they were in production, the kids all thought the actress was just super clever and made up the song just for them. The movie is based on Maria von Trapp's 1949 memoir, the story of the von Trapp family singers, who really did escape the Nazis by fleeing through the Austrian Alps to Italy, one day before Germany shut its borders. Though she was invited as a guest of honor to the opening of the musical, the wartime heroine received no such invitation for the film adaptation. Hollywood, you're awful. awful. After reaching out to a producer at 20th Century Fox, she was able to score a preview of the film, but was told it was a no-go for the premiere, which had already sold out. I mean, come on, people. To be fair, they were probably expecting her to need a +10. Chicago.
Your hair and wear your buckle shoes and all that jazz.
Velma has it.
I want a brand new start to do that jazz.
Roxy wants it.
All my life, I wanted to have my own act.
2002 was the time for Slick Bob Fosse, Chicago, and all that jazz hands. As we're discovering, most musical adaptations tend to be a little bit dark, and Rob Marshall's cinematic retelling of the 1975 Broadway hit was no exception. The story is entirely told through the POV of a delusional murderess flapper named Roxy Hart, played by Renee Zellweger. Roxy sees the world as a musical, and lying, cheating, and murdering is her ticket to the starring role. Don't we all? After shooting her side piece, Roxy levels up with a like-minded homicidal celebrity, Velma Kelly, played by Catherine Zeta-Jones, and lawyers up with Billy Flynn, an opportunistic defense attorney played by Richard Gere. Rounding out that incredible cast are Queen Latifah as matron Mama Morton and John C. Reilly as Roxy's buffoonish husband. And oh, did we mention that Roxy's inner life is such a three-ring circus it warrants its own imaginary MC played by Taye Diggs? Yeah. Fosse's really not known for his subtlety.
I'm not quite finished yet.
Face it, Roxy, you ain't never gonna have an act.
You got connections.
I would have said anything to get a piece of that.
What you need is Billy Flynn.
Chicago broke big at the box office, making $306 million, making it the highest grossing musical movie of all time. It also won big at the Oscars, where it earned 13 nominations and won 6, including, ta-da, Best Picture. The story of Chicago has an MCU's worth of what-ifs. Charlize Theron was originally cast as Roxy, but was dropped when Reiner came on. Beyoncé wanted to play Mama Morton, a role given to Kathy Bates before she had to drop out and the torch was passed to Queen Latifah, who got a Best Supporting Oscar nomination for the role but lost to Zeta-Jones, who honestly deserved it since she discovered she was pregnant right before shooting started. So that's why they were putting all those bowler hats and chairs in front of their stomachs. Got it.
Keep your paws off my lawyer.
Sweetest little jazz killer ever to hit Chicago.
That's the angle I'm after.
You were in the paper today, too. In the back, with the obituaries. They love me.
They love you a lot more if you're a hand. You know why? Because they sell more papers.
That's Chicago.
America's obsession with true crime can be traced back to Chicago's origin story. The movie was based on the Broadway musical, which was adapted from a 1920s play about real-life jazz murderess Beulah Annan and Belva Gaertner. So in a way, the duo's plan to slay their way into infamy worked out. Congratulations, I think. Little Shop of Horrors.
Given you sunlight, I've given you rain. Looks like you're not happy, unless I open a vein.
Where did you get such a weird plan?
Before it was ever on Broadway, Frank Oz's 1986 black comedy Little Shop of Horrors began as a throwaway B film from legendary producer Roger Corman. The first Little Shop of Horrors was born in 1960 over a bet the director had with his brother that he could rehearse and shoot an entire movie from the ground up over the course of 4 days using leftover sets from his previous film. With those conditions, I might have gone with something a little smaller in scope than giant man-eating plant takes over the world, but you do you, Roger. Of course, the 1986 version was a much grander spectacle, as Oz was no stranger to the magic of puppeteering. By the end of the film, when the carnivorous Metapod Audrey 2 is at her full power, it took 60 people to operate it properly.
You'll be a 10-10. You have a talent for causing things. Hey, so be a 10-10. People will pay you to be entertained.
Bill Murray stole almost the entire movie by improvising his dialogue. Oz trusted the SNL alum to be able to play opposite Steve Martin as the sadistic Orin Scrivello DDS, giving the two only the most minimal of onstage notes of what the scene was supposed to be.
Feed me all night long.
How am I supposed to keep on feeding you?
Whoa! Watch me now. I'm just a mean green mother from outer space, and I'm playing. I'm just a mean green mother from outer space, and it looks like you've been had.
Yes!
The ending of Oz's Little Shop of Horrors was originally much darker and closer to the one in Howard Ashman and Alan Menken's original Broadway production, in which Seymour and Audrey are both eaten by Audrey too. There was an elaborate musical number in the film which saw the plant rampaging across the world. The studio, however, opted for the more family-friendly version, in which Seymour and Audrey survive the attack and kill the alien plant. Ah, typical Hollywood. So predictable. But Google Little Shop of Horrors original ending and strap yourself in for a big, giant plant treat. DREAMGIRLS.
1, 2, 3, hit me! $400 a week to sing behind Mr. Jimmy Early on the road starting tomorrow morning.
Hey, thank you so much. You're saving Jimmy's life. I'm at your feet. I'll do anything for y'all. Exactly what would you like Jimmy to do for you, baby?
Bill Condon's 2006 DREAMGIRLS is yet another example of a film à clef, or in this case, a jukebox à clef, which is that little thing when a piece of fiction is inspired by real-life events, but doesn't want to get sued, so changes everybody's name and some of the key details. Nobody notices. In this case, DREAMGIRLS was based on the 1981 Broadway musical that took inspiration from the origin story of Motown Records and the formation and dissolution of the Supremes throughout the 60s and 70s. Rights to the original film were initially owned by the Broadway show's co-producer David Geffen, who imagined it as a star vehicle for Whitney Houston. When Geffen dissolved his studio to co-found DreamWorks in 1994, Warner Brothers bought the rights for a Joel Schumacher version starring Lauryn Hill, but the project was shelved until it was brought back to Geffen as a DreamWorks title, intending to cast relative unknowns as the singing group The Dreams to mirror the real-life rise of the Detroit girl group.
Oh, I know what's happening. I've been around.
I don't believe this all can be happening to me.
Every town.
Miracles happen all the time, baby.
Though it didn't exactly work out like that after one Beyonce Knowles came to Condon expressing interest in playing Dina, the shy backup member who becomes the lead vocalist in place of their resident diva, Effie White. Jamie Foxx had originally passed on the role of Curtis Taylor Jr. when DreamWorks wouldn't meet his salary, but he sure changed his tune fast when Queen Bey got involved. Eddie Murphy immediately accepted the part of Jimmy Thunder Early, a crooner character based on a mashup of James Brown, Jackie Wilson, and Marvin Gaye. So much for a cast of unknowns. But that still left the movie's star Effie up for grabs. Over 783 actresses auditioned for the role, including Disney star Raven-Symoné and American Idol alums Fantasia Barrino and Jennifer Hudson, as well as 2 actresses who had starred in the Broadway production. When Hudson was finally cast, it would mark her big screen debut and included the show-stopping number, And I Am Telling You I'm Not Going.
Dina's gonna sing lead.
What do you mean? I always sing lead.
We're dream girls, boy.
Change. I'm talking change.
Yeah, we're dream girls.
I promised you I was gonna make you a star, right?
We'll always care.
It paid off in a major way. Though originally fans were disgruntled that Hudson was delegated to the Best Supporting Actress category in DreamWorks' Oscar campaign, with Beyonce pushed to the front for Best Actress, it was Hudson who took home the gold that night, one of 2 awards that DreamGirls received from the Academy. The film was notably absent from the Best Picture category, however, making it the first film to have the most nominations in a single year without winning for Best Picture. Cabaret.
Damen und Herren, Mesdames et Messieurs, Ladies und Gentlemen, Fräulein Sally Bowles!
1972's hottest film was Cabaret. This musical had everything. Liza Minnelli, a sexually ambiguous MC, an IRL origin story set in Nazi Germany, and Bob Fosse. Which is that thing where Bob Fosse gets to direct his own musical's adaptation and goes absolutely berserk on set, using real animal guts in a scene where Minnelli's character finds her dog murdered, because who trusts actors to be able to do their job, right? Minnelli actually auditioned for the role of Sally Bowles in the original Broadway production, but gosh, she was unknown at one point. She was turned down due to her inexperience. With the movie, she was able to achieve something her mother, Judy Garland, never did, which was win an Oscar. Seriously? Judy Garland never won an Oscar? Okay, I guess that makes it official. Horror now has to share the most snubbed Oscar genre distinction with musical adaptations, because while Cabaret won 8 Oscars, it lost Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay to The Godfather. I kinda get it. But to this day, Fosse's sexy wartime classic still holds the record for winning the most Academy Awards without cinching Best Picture.
What good is sitting all alone in your room? Come, hear the music play.
The original camera negative of the film has been long lost. Any restoration for re-release in modern formats had to be done frame by frame. Life may be a cabaret, old chum, but restoring, it's a lot less fun. Oh my gosh, we're at the end! Should I do a musical number? Shall I do a song? Shall I do a dance? I can hit my mark. So that concludes what's got to be the darkest timeline of musical theater adaptations. If you're out there thinking musicals are all Dear Evan Hansen and The Greatest Showman, hope this episode has made you realize you are living in La La Land, or just Benji Pasek and Justin Paul stans. You tell me. So, did we include all your favorite things, or are there a few essential adapted musicals that didn't go grease lightning your way? Well, don't worry, we're bound to sing their praises in another Essentials list, so keep watching. This has been RT Essentials. I'm NIKKI NOVAK reminding you, don't cry for me, Argentina, or just don't cry for Argentina. We got a lot more content coming your way right after this.